Welcome to the St. Louis Syndicate. I'm Nate, he's Brandon, and we are here the day after Trump has won the election. That's probably politically incorrect of me. I should say things like it was such a good race and I'm happy for all the candidates, but let's be realistic. I'm as red,
Missouri.
I'm as red as they
Yeah.
come. I'm in Missouri. It's just part of the fun. So there we go. I guess my political opinions out there. All of the West Coast guys may not like us anymore, Brandon. I don't know, but that is what it is, I guess.
Hey, I mean, we're just talking numbers.
Just
It
talking
is what it
numbers, right?
is.
Just
Yeah.
talking, and numbers are numbers, right? There was betting out there.
Right?
The numbers on Trump and Kamala. I didn't place any wagers on the actual election. I should have. Did you, by any chance?
No, no, I that feels like bad juju. Like
Mhm.
you start like
I wasn't
all the
gonna
guys I
risk
was
it.
with last night. I don't know that anybody like placed a bet, but they were very closely following the markets. And I
Yeah.
was just like, sure, but like
Mm-mm.
you're either protecting against a bad situation or you're setting yourself up to get double whammied or yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna watch and
Spoken
just
like a
see what
true gambler.
happens.
True
Yeah, no,
gambler.
for sure.
Spoken like.
It's why I can't have an NFL team.
Yeah. Well, I understand that completely. Um, but let's speaking of NFL, let's talk. It was week 9 was interesting. You came out way ahead of me this week with your Ravens and Chargers pick. The Broncos left me feeling empty, and the Browns were horse shit this week.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yeah, I think
Um,
they gave up kinda. I think like obviously Jameis didn't. Like he's out there to,
he's out there
eat
making sure
W's and whip the
he's
ball
happy.
around. But
Yeah.
I think part of their team just kind of broke after a couple of quarters.
Yeah, it was not good. But so that's how we ended up for this week. Hopefully, you guys took Brandon's advice and not mine. Got some fun stuff. We're going to talk about week 10. We got a new slide, new look. We're going to talk about the St. Louis Syndicate's top 5 power ranking. Let's start right there, Brandon. Um, these could be in no particular order, though. When I made the slide, I put them in the order that I felt was most appropriate. So we're going to call it appropriate to say that the Lions right now are probably the strongest and the best team in the NFL. With the Red Kingdom, I heard some cool memes about the Red Kingdom winning in Trump's victory. With the Chiefs running at number 2, a lot of power rankings, Brandon, out there. Don't like the Chiefs this high. I personally don't see how you couldn't have them right behind the Lions, even ahead of the Lions. They just keep winning.
Yeah.
For God's sake.
Yeah, it's look, I watch the game just like everybody else. You go, how do they keep doing it? But the thing is that for the Lions and the Chiefs, when you watch the game, to me, I go, this game is not being contested.
Hmm.
Score might be close, but the team is in control. And they could screw up and they could lose and all that sort of thing. But all the other teams, um, at least the majority of the time, seem like they're efforting. And it Detroit and KC have just worked themselves into a situation where you just go like, they're probably gonna win. Like even if they're behind, even if it's tied, like they'll just figure it out. Like I don't need to get stressed about it. So those are the two that I'd have way up there.
Baltimore's not that far off from your analogy, though.
No,
They
no, I
kind
wouldn't
of
think
are right
so. But they've choked away a couple of games
there. Hmm.
where you go like, they have actually had the bad thing happen. So, for me, I just got to put them down just like a little part of a step.
Yeah.
I think that they're just as talented, but they, once you have that in the back of your head, um, he's kind of a boxer that's been knocked out.
Mm.
Like it's easier for it to happen again.
Nope.
Whereas
Agreed.
the Chiefs and the Lions just have not really been knocked out
Yeah.
for quite some time.
Yeah. Agreed.
So,
Completely.
I think they kind of got the head start. Minnesota, I feel like might be fading.
Maybe.
Sam
Yep.
Darnold might be turning back into a regular quarterback.
A pumpkin.
Yeah.
Cisco's
Well, and maybe
Halloween
he'll
list.
just, be an average quarterback. Maybe he doesn't have to be, Joe Montana
Hmm.
or um Sam Darnold. He could just be like an average quarterback. But that probably means that they don't get to be, a top 5 or 6 team in the long run.
Yeah.
But
And it's
well, it
probably true.
remains to be seen.
Who are they? Who are they sitting there right behind them? Probably San Francisco. Um,
Yeah, you got San
Injury
Francisco
bug.
in there. You got Philly, who seems like their main problem is their head coach, which, is a real main problem to have.
Yeah.
Um, and then Green Bay, you know, I'd say those 8, and then after that, it's a pretty, to me, precipitous drop off
Yeah.
to the next group of them
Yeah.
that go, like these 8 are pretty consistently good, and the other everything below that can just mail in an entire game sometimes.
So that's really our top five for this week. Next week, what we'll do is leave this week and see if there's anything that's changed.
Sure.
We'll line them up side by side just to do something a little bit different and give our take on who's up, who's down. Um, you know, we'll see how it goes. One of our top five teams plays Thursday night. We've got Cincinnati versus Baltimore. Looks like you're on the Ravens. Can you tell us what you got there?
Yeah, I think that the Bengals can't play run defense, and Derrick Henry and Lamar are just going to eat. Well, when you get up around the 6, it's the difference between, backdoor cover or not in my mind. But since I'm assuming they'll whip the ball around. We're staring at left 53 over under.
Hmm.
So, there's going to be scoring. I think there's a reality where the second half is not a very long second half, and there's a lot of running and the play clock running.
That actually makes a lot of sense. Probably the way I see this game, and for those of you that have listened at all, you'll know that I've started touting this, and I'm going to tout it even further. Anything related to NFC North team playing NFC North team, 3.5 is my number. Period. I just can't hardly get around that. They just know each other so well. They play each other well. I look at this Cincinnati team very similarly to Denver. And in reality, this was a close game, Baltimore Denver last week, up until about halftime, and then exactly as you said, Baltimore just takes over.
Yeah,
It just becomes like, how do you catch up? The difference is Cincinnati plays them twice a year. They're comfortable with each other. The coaching staffs know each other. Burrow knows them. Chase knows them. I think they can keep that backdoor cover in play. Baltimore wins, no doubt. They may win by 2. They may win by 6.
yeah,
I think it stays 6 or under, and so that's why I'm going to stay on Cincinnati this week.
seems reasonable.
Yeah, hey, I've been wrong um, many times before. Next one, kind of a fun one, right? The upstart um, Washington Commanders and the quarterback carousel Pittsburgh Steelers. Um,
Yeah,
in Russ, you trust, apparently.
yeah, yeah. I just being on the 3 feels like a little extra edge. Um, there were some 2.5s earlier in the week, and I don't I don't really believe in Ross, but I do believe in Tomlin, and he clearly believes in Ross. And as confusing as that is, um, I just can't get my arms around Washington not having like a real stumble. Like, oh,
Right.
hey, we went out here and tried to play a game and it just didn't work. And the Pittsburgh defense just might induce that this weekend.
I absolutely think that's fair. I can see that actually happening. I'm kind of going with my numbers here. I create my own lines. My numbers say Washington is 4.5. And honestly, I can see that happening. I can see the explosion occurring. with Jaden Daniels and them winning by 10 points. I can
Yeah.
also see Russ and the Steelers beating them outright. Um, the Steelers are a step up from Chicago and the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
I think that Washington, as they get into tougher teams like the Steelers, it's going to be interesting. I worry a little bit as I watch the Steelers. Brandon, do you have the Steelers schedule by any chance? You can
Yeah.
text this fairly
Yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
I almost look at the Steelers' record. I think they're 6-2. Does that
Two.
sound right?
6-2.
Um, I'm curious what it's going to look like at the end of the season after they've had to play Baltimore twice, after they've had to go through Cincinnati twice, and their schedule's kind of middle of the road, I believe, this year. But with what they have, I'm almost curious. The Steelers were picked last in the division by everybody at the beginning of the year. Do we still think that they could finish pretty low, like maybe 8 wins, 9 wins?
Yeah. Yeah. So, um, through week 8, because they were off last week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they had the 26th hardest schedule. And starting this week, they have the hardest schedule for the rest of the year.
Whoo!
They've got Washington, Baltimore's coming to town.
Oh,
They get, part of a week off playing at Cleveland, but still
interdivision
interconference,
on the north.
interdivision.
Mm-hmm.
They got to go to Cincinnati. Then Cleveland comes to them. Then they got to go to Philly and Baltimore.
Mm.
Kansas City comes to town,
Mm.
and then they close the season with Cincinnati. So they have a ton of division games.
Mm-hmm.
They've got some pretty serious competition outside of the division. Um, yeah, that they're stacked up here, staring down the barrel of having, you know, outside of the potential Cleveland games, depending on how hard Cleveland wants to play against their division, this is kind of their easiest game left. Other than that, so, they'll either do it here or they won't. And then there's a good chance they go below 500 for the rest of the way. And that puts them right there at that, 9, 10 wins, something around there, which is
Yeah.
still, when you start off your season and you're trying to Frankenstein two, two quarterbacks together.
Yeah.
That's not the worst thing that could ever happen, but you
Yeah.
get to 6-2 and you start thinking, maybe we're going to the playoffs, and they're really going to have to play above their head to make that happen.
Yeah. I don't see them making the playoffs based on that schedule.
Yeah,
And
it's really rough.
the one thing though that you mentioned that I hadn't thought of, and I will have to take into consideration, I actually think that in my pools and games, 2.5 is the number that I've got. At 2.5, Washington at home, I'm probably going to have to sit on Washington no matter what. But Tomlin off of bye week, there are a few coaches in the league, Reed, Harbaugh, Tomlin, um, used to be Belichick, right? Where you just didn't want to see these guys off a bye.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. And if Tomlin is looking at this schedule too, and he knows he's got to play the Ravens twice, he knows he's got the Chiefs. He's telling his team, he's telling his defense, we should not be losing to a rookie quarterback if we intend to get 10 or 11 wins and compete for a playoff spot. I could almost see Pittsburgh coming out and treating this as a very serious playoff type of game for them to have to execute against.
Yeah.
And only a coach like Tomlin or Reed or one of those guys could make that happen. In the
Right. Yeah, it's gonna be risky
Yeah,
going either way
absolutely.
with this because playing around the 3, maybe Washington just keeps playing over their head and they just kind of wash Pittsburgh away, but they need this win. So it'll be interesting to see how much ferocity they come out of the gun with.
For a Week 10 game, this feels very important. So I'm pretty interested to see how this plays out. And in reality, this is all the 3 games on our board, right? This is a do or die pretty much for Cincinnati. They can't
Uh-huh.
fall too much further behind, especially the Ravens. The Ravens want to show their dominance off, not die for them so much, more do.
Yeah.
And then moving on to our last game, right? Detroit Houston. Detroit could lose and it won't hurt them, but they're trying to prove to everybody that they are the premier team in the NFL. And Houston is trying to prove that they belong with the big boys this year and not just a conversation topic for next year.
Yeah. 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 And I just don't see how they get it done. I mean, you can see we both got Detroit on this one. I I think Houston's, you know, middle of the road defense probably runs into a buzzsaw here.
Yeah.
And, you know, Nico's probably not coming back this week. Um, I hate laying the hook, but damn, I don't know what to do with this.
Well, I think the Lions
Like
have
Houston
more.
doesn't have Houston doesn't have like a crazy home field advantage or anything even really.
No, no. I think the Lions also probably have the best offensive line in football. Goff hardly ever gets touched. They're
Yeah,
blowing holes open for these running backs like crazy. Um, it's not hard to see them dominating games on both sides of the ball. They just made a trade for another defensive lineman to help replace the loss of Hutchinson.
Hutchinson.
So, I can see some positives really going on here. Um, 49 might actually be a low number for the over under here. I only say that because comparatively speaking, with Baltimore and Cincinnati at 53, that's not a game that I would traditionally say is going to end up 30-23 or, you know,
Yeah,
I don't see that as much. Detroit, I could definitely see that game in Houston being 35-28 or, um, 33 to 20, and going over that 50-point mark.
yeah, yeah. I mean, realistically, we don't do a lot of talk about like team totals and stuff like that, but
Yeah,
I would the part of the 49 that's worrying me would be Houston's side of it.
completely.
You know, that like I'm thinking in my head like, oh, like Detroit could get like 35,
Yeah.
38, and this could still go under if Houston just completely like bottoms out
Which
playing this defense. Like,
could happen.
who knows?
Yeah. I think that's an interesting angle and something fun to look at. And, if all of our fans out there want to vote for us to talk about team totals, send us a note, and we'll definitely talk about that in future weeks. But what is the Lion and Texan team total just as you're
Let
glancing
me
at
see
it?
here.
I'm sure
Let me
you've
get
got
a
it
quick
closed.
look. Yeah, it's right here. That kind of jumps off the page to me when I'm sitting there going like I start getting anxious about um the underdog
Yeah.
not helping, and you go like, oh, that's a little rough. Oh, maybe I don't have team totals here. Well,
That's all right.
oh, here we go. Nope, I got it. So they've got uh 27 for Detroit
Hmm.
and 20 and a half for Houston.
Okay, so they've got 47.
So, you know, yeah, that's one of those 20 and a half, man. Houston goes scores three touchdowns without, you know, really any long range firepower. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see how, because
Man,
I don't
I
think
can see
Stroud's
them landing.
broken. I just don't think he has any of his toys.
Yeah, they can land right on 20. Can't you? I can see that
Yeah,
being 20, right? And then it just depends on what does Detroit show up with, right? Is it 28-20 and it goes under, or is it 31-20 and it goes over?
right.
That's probably where this thing's sitting.
Well, and the argument, I'm assuming, was holding us at 3.5 here is
Yep.
that Houston has the rest advantage because they
Yep.
played on Thursday, and Detroit had to play outside in that monsoon, their first outdoor game of the year, and then they got to travel on a short week. I just, I don't know that it matters for for Detroit. Like you just stare at that and go, Campbell seems to be not letting his guys take their foot off the pedal.
Now there's going to be a guard score a touchdown, so you know.
Sure seems like it.
All right, guys. Well, hey, good luck with your picks this week. I'm Nate. He's Brandon. That's who we've got. Good luck with what you've got.
Cheers.